Morning. As I reflect on beautiful music we heard and beautiful reading the profound words of Swami Vivekananda, and also reflect on what we're going to discuss in the talk, I feel a tremendous sense of gratitude to the great teachers who have preceded us. Some of these teachers we've met in flesh and blood, some of them we've heard about, and others we've only read their teachings and their works. Even centuries later, we are deriving strength and inspiration because they struggled, they realized something, they experienced something, and they felt moved to communicate that to those coming afterwards. Really, we are extremely fortunate to have this legacy and to try to benefit by it. It's a tremendous help in our own spiritual life. So the topic today is the bear, blanket, rope, and snake. There are many principles in Vedanta that are difficult to explain, partly because they really push and even break the boundaries of language and reasoning. For example, we often speak of time, space, and causation and say that the reality we are seeking is beyond that. What could that possibly mean? Can you even conceive of something which is beyond time, space, and causation? Because currently, our whole world exists within time, space, and causation. How can we even conceive of something which is of something beyond or which doesn't fit into this framework? Often, for example, in Vedanta society discussions, somebody will ask, what is the cause of existence? What caused this world? But the answer is, there is no answer for that, because causation itself is a part of existence. So what caused causation has no answer. That's of course not satisfying, because when you ask what appears to be a fundamental question, the answer is that the question doesn't make sense, it cannot be answered. It's not satisfying. Nevertheless, that's the problem. That's the problem we have to deal with. In other such teachings, we're told that ultimate reality is neither one nor many. Now, what do you make of that? You see, it's a little jarring because we're used to think, well, it has to be one or the other. If it's something, if it's not something, it must be the opposite. But no, we say ultimate reality is neither one nor many. We are so used to the principle of the excluded middle. If statement A is true, then the negation must be false. We are used to kind of quantitative thinking, but that also doesn't hold in the spiritual realm. For example, it's said that we gain more the more we give away. Now, what sense does that make? The usual ordering is rejected. He who is first shall be last, who is last shall be first. What sense? You see the problem that you're dealing with concepts which, when you try to express in ordinary words and languages, you break the boundaries, almost to the point where if you took it literally, it doesn't make any sense. But the point is that, nevertheless, we have to make this attempt. And this is why philosophers, spiritual teachers, try to give us the deep principles through illustrations, analogies, and examples that somehow relate to familiar concepts. And each such example has to be taken very seriously and contemplated upon, because they illustrate one or more principles. Superficially, they may look familiar, but if we really analyze them carefully, it quickly takes us beyond our comfort zone and into the realm of deep principles of Vedanta. So these have to be analyzed, first rationally, using our rational intellect, but also reflected on and meditated upon, so that we can go beyond the rational. It is not rational, but it is not irrational either. It is what Aurobindo calls supra-rational. Somehow it includes the rational, but more than that. So in this genre of teachings, one such example, which many of you are familiar with, is the story of the rope and the snake. So the idea is, in the darkness, we see something rope-like, and we can't completely identify it. There's some light, so we can see there's something there. It looks rope-like, but we can't completely identify it. Now, but we don't stop there. We try to use our imagination to guess what it is. What is it? Identify it. Because it is human nature. We're not content to say, I don't know what it is. We start guessing. In fact, this is the case in the regular process of perception. Whenever we get some sort of sensory experience and try to identify it, we try to peg it within the things that we have some experience with. And if it doesn't exactly fit, we try to put things together so that it does fit. That's actually physiologically how perception happens. So we use our imagination if it doesn't exactly fit into one of the categories that we already have. And our imagination functions according to our personality, our perspectives, and our mental state. So you know, for example, how different people react to physical ailments. Somebody has a pain, and it may be a small pain, but I think I broke something. They go running to the doctor. Somebody else may actually have broken something, and when you say, are you in pain? You say, no, it's just a little sprain. Actually, it's not a sprain, they broke a bone. So the point is, according to your personality and perspective, you may categorize something as in a certain way. There is, in the literature and also in experience perhaps, we find somebody who feels guilty about something, whose conscience is bothering them. Their imagination is very different. In Shakespeare's Macbeth, Macbeth, you see, he committed a murder, and his conscience is overpowering him. And he says in a soliloquy, he says, will all of Neptune's waters wash the blood stain from my hands? Actually, there is no blood stain on his hands, it's in his mind. But that's what he sees because of his conscience bothering him. There's another story of a gardener or a landlord who had a garden, who employed several gardeners, and they were growing something. There was a prize pumpkin, really large pumpkin. The owner was very happy with that and was waiting to harvest it. But one day it disappeared. So he gathered all the gardeners, one of you must have taken it. Who was it? So he went and asked one by one, did you take it? Everybody said, no, I didn't take it, I didn't take it. One person started dusting off his shoulder and said, no, I didn't take it. It's clearly he took it, carried it on his shoulders, and he's afraid there is some incriminating evidence on his shoulders. Actually, there isn't. It's in his mind. So, Swami Vivekananda tells that in fear of being caught, a thief who sees a stump of a tree in the dark thinks it's a policeman. In the same story, Swami Vivekananda says, a child who sees this very same stump thinks it's a ghost. May thinks it's a ghost because they heard ghost stories. And also, this is very important, he adds one more example. A lover thinks it's their sweetheart because that's what's in their mind, and so that's what they project outside as well. Now, in the case of our story, there is this rope-like thing, and the person can't quite see it. They imagine it to be a snake. Now, this is used to explain several Vedantic concepts. All of them are related to the limits of perception and understanding and the need to go beyond the objective world. Now, the person who gets the most mileage out of this is Shankaracharya in Vivekachudamani. It is an original composition. There are 9 verses in Vivekachudamani about the rope and the snake. So let's go through them because they tell us 3 important points. Remember what he's trying to explain. Seeing the snake in the rope requires 2 things. Firstly, I don't see the rope clearly. Second thing, I project the snake. So one is ignorance and then projection. So there are 3 verses of Vivekachudamani where Shankara asserts perception of the snake is error or illusion. Remove the illusion and the truth will of itself appear or shine forth. So I'll tell you, if you're taking notes, exactly what these verses are. Verse 198. It says, once illusion is destroyed, the rope is no longer mistaken for a snake. Okay? Once illusion is destroyed, the rope is is no longer mistaken for a snake. Verse 388 says, with error removed, truth shines. Okay, same kind of thought. You remove the error, truth shines. Remove the perception of the snake, and the rope appears. And then verse 405 says, even before the realization of the supreme truth, the universe does not exist in the absolute Brahman. No snake is ever truly seen in a rope, past, present, or future. Okay, so in these three verses, Shankara is making the point that the perception of the snake is an error or an illusion. Remove that illusion, and what is there will shine forth. By the way, as I'm quoting these verses, I just want to make it clear, I'm not an expert on Vivek. I just did a search, which any of you can do. Get a PDF file of Vivek and do a search on snake and rope, and these are the verses that come out. Now, I'm telling you that because we have no new tools for study now that didn't exist, let's say, a few years ago or a decade ago. But you can use them to your own benefit. Now you can apply them in your practice of Vedanta too. Okay, so we have this idea there is an illusion. Remove the illusion, truth will appear. Now the problem is, how can we remove the illusion? So this is discussed in two verses. And both verses say, you remove the illusion by the exercise of reasoning and discernment, vichara and viveka. So verse 110, the illusion of the snake is destroyed by the discerning knowledge of the rope. Okay, so you start questioning this thing that looks snake-like, that I'm thinking is a snake. If it were a snake, why does it not move? Snakes tend to move. Okay, maybe it's sleeping. Snakes do sleep, but maybe they're going to hold. Anyway, it's not moving. So what if I throw a stone at it or disturb it in some way and it still doesn't move? See, there are various ways you can start investigating by which you will realize that it couldn't possibly be a snake. So the illusion of the snake is destroyed by the discerning knowledge of the rope. Okay, then verse 246 says, eliminate the objective world through reasoning. It is unreal like the snake in the rope. Okay, so now, you see, Shankara is not just playing a game with the snake and the rope. He's trying to give us a very profound idea of underlying reality. So he says, he's trying to tell us that the objective world, the world of multiplicity that we perceive, is in some sense unreal, and that there is an underlying reality that we have to discover. So he says the objective world is to be eliminated through reasoning and reflection. It is unreal like the snake in the rope. So here a very profound idea is being introduced. The rope is somehow the underlying reality, and the perceived snake is an illusion. So similarly, the objective world of perception is the illusion. When you apply viveka and vichara to the perceived world, you try to discover what is real. Now you have to bear in mind that in the same work of Vivek, Shankara gives a definition of real, and it's that definition that he constantly applies. So his definition of real is that which doesn't change in time. And we can also add, if you like, that which doesn't change in space and causation. But that which doesn't change in time is what he considers to be real. And that's difficult even to imagine that, but it's good to keep it in mind. But the analogy with the rope and the snake makes it possible, you see, something which is very hard to even imagine, he makes it possible for us to imagine by giving us the analogy of the rope and the snake. So what is it that is so jarring at first? That the perceived world, everything we see here, is in some sense an illusion. If you make that kind of statement, you see, you have a lot of explaining to do. Because surely what I'm perceiving is real. I can touch this, it feels hard, it's there. I can see you, I can talk to you. When we both look at something, we're apparently seeing the same thing. How can you say all of this is an illusion? That's a very jarring idea, but nevertheless, that's exactly where he wants to get us, and he's going to do it with the help of the rope and the snake. So this statement, you see, the problem with it is when you say the perceived world is an illusion, it undercuts all our experience. And so you need to exercise a lot of viveka and vichara to get past that. But let's say you're able to do it, then what happens in that process? What changes? What changes is we ourselves. We change in the sense that our perception and understanding changes. Nothing is happening to the reality that is being perceived. So verse 570 says, appearance and disappearance of the snake are not in the rope. The rope undergoes no change. So that's the third thing. And now still the question remains, but what is it we're perceiving now? This question often comes up when we're discussing in Gnana Yoga. This question comes up, are there then two things? The thing that we're perceiving, the illusion, and then something real? What is it we're perceiving now? Are there two existences? One that can vanish through reflection, whose existence seems to be dependent on our mind, and another that is not so dependent? In two verses, Shankara explains, no, there is only one existence. So this is verse 235. He says, existence of a world separate from the Paramatma is false, like the snake in the rope. And then in verse 407, he says, superimposition is identical with the substratum. Distinction is only delusion. Okay? So he's saying that there are not two existences. What is. The other thing says one. What is. You're seeing it this way now. As your mind changes, you'll see it in another way. Now you may ask, so that accounts for 8 of, I said there were 9 verses, that accounts for 8 verses in case you're keeping count. What's the 9th verse? Well, you could ask, so in all of these 8 verses, there's a rope and I'm mistaking it for a snake. Well, you could ask what happens if the other way around happens. There's a snake and I mistake it for a rope. That can also happen. But he only deals with that in one verse. Verse 138, he says, great danger befalls one who grabs a snake thinking it to be a rope. Indeed. But this is sort of one-sided way in Shankara that he's more worried about the rope as the underlying reality and the snake as the illusion, has to be balanced with this other point of view, that if you see the snake, but if there is a snake and you mistake it for a rope, this is elaborated on in another story, which is not in Vivekachudamani. And I don't know actually what the origin of this is. I heard it first from Swami Saragatananda, but it must be, perhaps it is in the classical literature. So this is the story of the blanket and the bear. So once somebody was walking along a river shore, and they saw something floating in the river. And just as with the rope, they couldn't clearly identify it, it looked kind of fuzzy. So the person used his imagination, or her imagination, but they imagined incorrectly that it is a blanket. Now add to that a feeling of want. In the case of the snake and the rope, it was fear. Now add here a little bit of greed, or a feeling of want. So what did the person do? They dived in to retrieve it. Now having grabbed it, then the person starts struggling to return to the shore. And another person, an observer, sees the struggle and understands he's having trouble. He says, let go of the blanket. Maybe it's pulling you on. Let go of the blanket. He said, it's not a blanket, it's a bear. He went to grab the blanket, but the bear grabbed him. So in both stories, you see, there is ignorance and incorrect perception. And then there is projection, or incorrect apprehension and one is motivated by fear. In the case of the rope that I saw as a snake, it's fear. The other one is by greed, kind of greed. In one case, fear prevents the person from acting, and the other case, greed makes them act, but improperly. So these are two things that we have to somehow deal with, control, and so on. Both greed and fear are acting here, but both of them can be reduced to one. They are both manifestations of something else that is behind, namely desire. In the case of greed, it is desire to have something. In the case of fear, it is desire not to lose something. In both cases, they are motivated by desire. So let's summarize again. In both stories, there are 3 points that we have to remember. First, the illusory nature of the world that we perceive. If we remove the illusion, whether it's the snake or the blanket, the underlying reality, either the rope or the bear, will be revealed. And implicit in this is the claim that there is an underlying reality. Okay, Vedanta is not a nihilist or atheistic philosophy. It clearly asserts there is an underlying reality. So that's the first point. The illusory nature of the world we perceive, remove the illusion and you'll discover the underlying reality. Second, the exercise of viveka and vichara. This will result in our own instrument of perception, namely the mind, to evolve and become stronger and more accurate, so that it is able to see past the illusion. When the mind becomes stronger through the practice of viveka and vichara, our perception of reality becomes clearer. And then impulses like fear and greed will not sweep us off our feet. They may still occur, but we need not be ruled by them. As we heard in the reading with the stag, fear occurs and they act. But Swami Vivekananda gives us the hopeful idea that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Nothing is done in a day. Slowly, you become stronger to be able to handle that. Okay, that's the second thing. The exercise of viveka and vichara is the way you discover what the illusion is. But third, after you've understood that, you come to the conclusion there weren't two existences. It's not a snake and a rope, or a bear and a blanket. There was always only one. We discovered that the apparent world we have been perceiving is also a manifestation of the same underlying reality. Okay, so these are the 3 points, the very, very profound points that we get from these stories. So let's consider now these 3 points. The first statement, as I said, that the world we perceive is illusory, requires a lot of discussion. By the way, in thinking about these, and I'm sure as you reflect on these as well, we could spend the whole day discussing. These are really fundamental ideas of Vedanta. So at best, there's about 15 minutes left. At best, I'm going to just touch on a few ideas and hopefully to stimulate more thought and reflection. So, as we already said, Shankara's definition of reality is that to be real, it has to be constant in time. And since the phenomenal world is constantly changing, from philosophical or academic point of view, there's no argument. If Shankara's definition is what the one we're using, the world is unreal, because it's changing. So, from that point of view, there's nothing more to say. But the problem is that we, in terms of our experience, we see and we feel the world, and we have a strong conviction that it is real. After all, it's home to everything that we know of and value in life. The way we experience meaning and purpose, is through the phenomenal world. And so if we take that away from us, where are we? All the people that we love, all the people we live for, they're here. They're part of the phenomenal world. All the things that we struggle for are here. We have goals, we have aspirations and targets. How can we give all that up as illusion? We are fine with the snake and the rope. We sort of understand there was a mistake there and the snake was an illusion. Or even the bear and the blanket. So, okay, we'll be careful. Thank you, Shankara. We'll be careful on these things. But to conclude from this that the world is illusion, that seems to be a little hard to take. This is actually not a unreasonable position to start with. But we have to examine that a little bit. Firstly, are we willing to admit that the world has not only what is dear to us, but also a lot of things that we would rather not have? Are we willing to accept that the world we like so much is actually a mixed bag? Good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant, happiness and misery. See, we may strive very hard, struggle for something, and yet fail. Somebody else may not struggle very much and get something. Now you may feel, firstly, I feel this is unfair, this is unjust. Then are we willing to accept that failure and injustice are also part of the world? Also, are we willing to accept that these are not disjoint or separate things, that the very thing that gives us happiness may also give us misery? The people we love may break our heart when they die. Everyone dies. Or will we cling to an imagination that somehow, a childish imagination, that somehow it's possible to have all the things that we like and none of the things that we don't like? Or is that our idea of the world? It won't make any sense. We sort of have this illusion of some sort of heaven where there will be only happiness, only joy, no misery. Maybe some people, even well-minded people, may try to say, let's just try to create heaven on earth. Are we ready to accept that such a thing doesn't exist? That this world is like a fire. It heats us, but can also burn us. And are we able to see that you can't have one without the other? Swami Vivekananda says, we are like the bee that came to enjoy the honey. The bee came to sip the honey, but its feet stuck to the honey pot, and it could not get away. Again and again, we are finding ourselves in that state. We are caught, though we came to catch. We came to enjoy, we are being enjoyed. We came to rule, we are being ruled. We came to work, we are being worked. In the essay, God is Everything, that Karthik read from, Swami Vivekananda continues to put this whole world of happiness and misery in perspective. He says, the cause of all miseries from which we suffer is desire. You desire something, and the desire is not fulfilled, the result is distress. If there is no desire, there is no suffering. Now remember, in the two stories, we boiled both down to desire is the fundamental issue. It is interesting that we entertain desire with the hope that it will put us in a better state, make us happier. But more often than not, our efforts to satisfy our desire are unsuccessful, and as a result, we end up unhappy. The very thing that we use to try to make ourselves happier ends up making us unhappy. The very path we took to reach happiness leads us instead to unhappiness. So that seems to suggest that we should try and eschew desire. That sounds another problematic kind of thing. We say the world is unreal, now we say give up desire. But Swamiji adds a nuance to this. Will getting rid of desire really result in happiness? Interesting idea. He asks, will getting rid of desire actually result in happiness? Here's how he explains it. The walls have no desire, and they never suffer. True, but they never evolve. This chair has no desires. It never suffers, but it is always a chair. There is a glory in happiness. There is a glory in suffering. And if I may dare to say so, there is a utility in evil too. So here Swamiji has introduced a really important new idea. He leads us to understand that besides being happy or unhappy, there is something else going on, which is actually the main thing, namely our own evolution, our growth. So he continues, the great lesson in misery we all know. There are hundreds of things we have done in our lives which we wish we had never done, but which at the same time have been great teachers. As for me, I'm glad I have done something good and many things bad. Glad I have done something right, and glad I have committed many errors, because every one of them has been a great lesson. I, as I am now, am the resultant of all I have done, all that I have thought. Every action and thought have had their effect, and these effects are the sum total of my progress. Thus, you see, happiness and misery are teachers, especially misery teaches us and helps us to grow. But who actually benefits by that? Only the person who is alert enough and open enough to realize that there is a lesson to be learned. We have to be open to learning. And how do we make ourselves open to learning? Through vichara and viveka, through reflection, through discernment. And what is it that we have to learn? Again, Swamiji explains. We all understand that desires are wrong, but what is meant by giving up desires? How could life go on? You see, Swami is one a philosopher who understood our predicament, or understood the issue here. Yes, you can argue philosophically the world is unreal, you have to give up desires, but the problem is you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater in a sense, because you say, what's the point of living? You know the story of the person who was sick and the doctor told him, you can't eat this, can't eat that. And if you follow all these things, you will survive. So what's the point? You took away all the things that I enjoy eating, and now you say you'll survive for what purpose? So that's our predicament, and Swamiji is trying to help us explain that in fact, we know that, Vedanta understands that, and there is a way forward. So we all understand that desires are wrong, but what is meant by giving up desires? How could life go on? It would be the same suicidal advice, killing the desire and the man too. The solution is this, and this is a very important point. Not that you should not have property, not that you should not have things which are necessary, and even things which are luxuries. Have all that you want and more. Only know the truth and realize it. Wealth does not belong to anybody. Have no idea of proprietorship or possessorship. So, you see, this can be made clearer by some simple logic. When we were born, we didn't bring anything with us. When we're alive, we manipulate what is made available to us. And when we die, we didn't see anybody taking anything with them. So you can ask then, to whom does all this belong? So what right do we have really to assert ownership? There is, Swami Sarvabhatam told us that there is a very good idea in Islam here. And it is embedded so much that every legal contract has this phrase, that you are only a trustee, that the owner is Allah. So this idea of Muslim idea of being a trustee is more accurate. So Swamiji is saying you can have all the things that you want, but give up the idea of ownership or possessorship. The idea of possession is the illusion. If we examine our world, or the world as we know, we should see how much of it we define through possessions, whether it is objects or skills or abilities. Our world is defined in that way. So if once we are able to relinquish that, you see, it gives a different idea of what the world is. To this we have to add one more thing. It's not only possessions, we also have to pay attention to passions. Passions are aroused when we try to satisfy desire. They cloud our judgment. These two things, passions and possessions, are the illusion that we have to overcome. This was expressed by Sri Ramakrishna when he said, woman and gold alone is Maya, or man and gold alone is Maya. Passions and possessions are the things that cloud our understanding about the nature of the world. So therefore, it's not suicidal advice to say when we say the world is unreal or an illusion, it is to be understood in this way. Now remember I told you there are 3 points in the story. The second point was that we have to exercise viveka and vichara. So second point in these stories tell us evolution and growth and change takes place in the mind of the perceiver and not in that which is being perceived. And the mind evolves through the exercise of viveka and vichara. For example, the kind of analysis we just did with Swamiji's help. This particular point is best understood through the bear and blanket story, more than the rope and snake. When the person had difficulty in coming back to shore, they tried to give up the blanket, but found it would not give them up. Any spiritual practice, actually any discipline, even if it's in science or sports or any kind of discipline, requires us to some extent to gain control over the flow of thoughts and to direct the flow in a given direction. You have to become one-pointed and focused on what it is you're trying to do. But sometimes we find our efforts are thwarted by a thought that refuses to relinquish control and keeps pushing our thoughts in a direction that we don't want to go. At one time, perhaps, I embraced a certain thought. Now I want to let it go, but it doesn't want to let me go. I felt the thought is a blanket and went after it, only to discover it's a bear and it's going after me. I want to forget the thought, but it doesn't want to forget me. So how do we handle that? We need to objectify it. We need to analyze it and appraise it. The power to objectify a thought and to analyze it is all about the practice of detachment. And detachment is a fundamental spiritual discipline. It's not the work of a day, an entire lifetime will be spent on it. The whole of the Gita is about detachment. And we need to exercise willpower. I will not be a victim of this thought. But one problem is once you're attached, detaching is not easy. Nevertheless, it is possible. Why is it possible? Because all attachment and identification is habit. Habit can be made and therefore unmade. Attachment comes from repeated longing and thinking. Gita explains, Chayado Vishampamsa Sangastesha. What you continually reflect on, you develop an attachment for. But that means that I can create attachment by repeated thinking and longing. So I can create an attachment to be a devotee by exposing myself to devotional thoughts. Slowly, those thoughts gain prominence and the attachment becomes strong. And if there are competing attachments, the one to which we have given more thought and which we have more longing for will dominate. So that way, the stronger attachment becomes stronger. So viveka and vichara are the secret weapons by which attachment can be made stronger or weaker. And then, when this is done, what do we discover about the world? Remember, that's the third point, that there weren't two existences, that what we're perceiving is the same as the underlying reality. But when you go through this process of viveka and vichara, when you gain some detachment from your thoughts, your perception becomes finer and sharper, what do you discover? In Swami Vivekananda's words, it is the deification of the world. The Vedanta does not in reality denounce the world. The ideal of denunciation nowhere attains such a height as in the teachings of the Vedanta. But at the same time, dry, suicidal advice is not intended. It really means deification of the world. Giving up the world as we think of it, as we know it, as it appears to us, and to know what it really is. Deify it. It is God alone. We read at the commencement of one of the oldest of the Upanishads, whatever exists in this universe is to be covered with the Lord. So he's talking about the Isha Upanishad, and actually what the first verse says is it doesn't use the word Lord, nor does it ask us to cover something. It simply says the ruling force, Isha, universal spirit, pervades this entire objective world, even the very minutest part. So Swamiji continues, the whole world is full of the Lord. Open your eyes and see Him. This is what Vedanta teaches. Give up the world which you have conjectured, because your conjecture was based upon a very partial experience, upon very poor reasoning, and upon your own weakness. Give it up. The world we have been thinking of for so long, the world to which we have been clinging to for so long, is a false world of our own creation. Give that up. Open your eyes and see that as such, it never existed. It was a dream, Maya. What existed was the Lord Himself. It is He who is in the child, in the wife, and in the husband. It is He who is in the good and in the bad. He is in the sin and in the sinner. He is in life and in death. God is in the wealth that you enjoy. He is in the desire that arises in your mind. He is in the things you buy to satisfy your desire. He is in your beautiful attire, in your beautiful ornaments. This is the line of thought. All will be metamorphosed as soon as you begin to see things in that light. If you put God in your every movement, in your conversation, in your form, in everything, the whole scene changes. And the world, instead of appearing as one of woe and misery, will become a heaven. So that's to summarize that the bear, blanket, rope and snake stories teach us three things. Firstly, the world we currently perceive is an illusion, in the sense that we have projected all sorts of things because of our desires. Second, strengthening our mind through viveka and vichara will help us to rise above those desires and see past that illusion. The illusion is largely expressed through our ideas of possession. And then we discover what the world really is. It is the visible manifestation of reality and of God. Even to understand all of this theoretically, has immediate applications in our interpersonal relationships. How would you behave in the presence of God? If God were to appear in front of you, whatever your concept of God, how would you behave? Wouldn't you be at your best possible behavior? You want to serve, you'll be full of devotion, your mind will be open. But if you and I and our world are all manifestations of that divinity, then how should we behave? Far from, this is an extremely important point, far from being a theoretical discussion, Vedanta impacts on our world now. Not about what will happen after you have a certain experience, after you reach a certain state, it impacts right now, today. Far from being a theoretical discussion, this you see has huge practical implications for our daily life, how we should speak with one another, how we should interact with one another. So friends, may we use the life that has been allotted to us to try our best to practice viveka and vichara, to reflect on the world that we see around us, and to realize that it is in fact the manifestation of the spiritual reality, and behave accordingly.